Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very important thing in your polymer clay, and that is how to bake it properly. So many times I've seen wonderful tutorials for polymer clay items and they tell you to bake it for 10 minutes, and that's just wrong. And I'm going to show you why today, and also give you some other tips for baking your polymer clay properly. So, as many of us do, I learned all about the proper way to bake polymer clay by making mistakes. Many years ago, some of my first projects were from this book. This is Maureen Carlson's How to Make Clay Characters. And I actually made several of these little cuties. And you know what? If you look around in my studio today, none of them are there because I baked them improperly and I conditioned them improperly. And in the decade or so since I made them, they have crumbled. I did finally remake one, and there she is. I've shared her on my Instagram. So today I'm going to show you what I've learned about baking polymer clay properly. So this is my baking station. This is everything I need to bake polymer clay properly. And as you can see, it's just 2 aluminum roasting tins that I got for I think under $1 each at Job Lot. And then inside here I have a bunch of paraphernalia that I use for baking. More about that in a minute. Inside the pan I have a piece of cardstock that I've accordion folded. And this is great for baking beads. This just gives them little channels to sit in. And then the idea is that you just have one pan on the bottom with your items in it, have another pan on top, and then you can clip it together. Now I've seen it suggested that you clip your pans together using metal binder clips, and they work great. The only problem with that I've found is that I'm impatient and I want to get into my clay right after, or sometimes there's a good reason that I want to get to the clay before it's completely cooled. So I love to use wooden clothespins because even right out of a 275-degree oven, I can handle these. Don't touch the metal part, but I can handle these and then use a pot holder to take off the top and get at my stuff inside. The only limitation with this would be that the height can't be higher than the 2 pans stacked together. But other than that, it's fantastic. And I have found ways around that. I've made a foil collar going around the 2 to allow me to make it a little bit taller. And then in this bag I have some important things for baking. I have, first of all, just paper and card that I bake things on so that they don't get shiny spots. I often bake on the ceramic tiles that I create on, but if you bake directly on those, the clay that's touching this tile will get a shiny spot. Sometimes I'm baking oddly shaped things like my dragons. Sometimes their heads or different appendages need to be propped. And that's what this batting is for. It is fine. This has been through a 275-degree oven many times, and it's just fine. The same with all this paper. And these are just for building armatures and such. And then also I have all these pieces of toilet paper and paper towel tubes for making curves and pieces. And again, because this is paper, your pieces won't get shiny spots. Oh, and little bits of toilet tissue are great for propping up pieces, filling out pieces. Because when you bake, polymer clay gets weak, it slumps. So, for example, on this dragon, you've seen him, I propped his ears. I would just put a little roll of toilet tissue in there while it was baking to keep it from slumping in the oven. And then once it's cool, it's nice and firm. Now, the really most important thing I wanted to talk about today was the time that you spend baking. Now before I get to time on baking, there's one other thing you need to correctly bake your polymer clay, and that is accurate temperature. This is an oven thermometer. It's a nice one with a probe that can go in the oven, and then this sits on the countertop, and you can just keep an eye on the temperature. You can program it in different ways too. Home ovens are notorious for being inaccurate. If your oven spikes too high, it's going to burn your clay. If it runs too low, it's not going to be properly cured. So it needs to be at the correct temperature for the correct amount of time specified by the manufacturer. And actually, usually it needs to be a little bit longer. The temperature, keep it to what they say, but the time, well, let me show you. Here I have some samples of conditioned clay, and then I've baked them for different amounts of time. So I've got two different thicknesses here. Now, so many polymer clay directions say to bake them for 10 minutes. So here I have the thickest sheet of my pasta machine and then a double thickness, and these were both baked for 10 minutes at 275. This clay was thoroughly conditioned first. All of this was conditioned together, so it's all conditioned the same. The only difference is that they were baked for different times. So here's a piece, 10 minutes. And like nothing, it snaps. It's not flexible, it's not pliant. So if you make a piece with thin bits, like wings or any kind of thin appendage or even a bowl, and you only bake it for 10 minutes, that's what you get. It's going to be brittle and crumble. And let's see, this thicker piece, again, snapped right away, super easy. So 10 minutes is not long enough. Most clay packages say to bake them for 30 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. So if this is a 1/4 inch thick, it's around there, maybe a little less, I would bake it for at least 30 minutes, if not more like 45. Here's a couple of the exact same condition pieces, same thicknesses, baked for 30 minutes. Now this one, you can see I can, can turn it into a boomerang. I can bend it. It's got a little bit of creasing there when it gets bent. You can see how much stronger and more flexible it is. And yes, polymer clay is supposed to be flexible once it's baked. It will, unless you have a different kind of brand, I don't know any that will be super rigid when they're baked. And let's see this thicker one. And now let's move on to the ones that were baked for 60 minutes. Now this is even more flexible and pliant. I know it's hard for you to tell on camera, but I can feel it as I'm bending it. It's bending so much more easily. It didn't get, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, it didn't get that white crease at the bend that this one did. It's just really flexible. And even this thick one that you would think would be quite brittle. Look at that. I can bend it and flex it. So the only time that you would bake something for 10 minutes, and even then I would probably do it longer, is if you were pre-baking a piece. For example, back to my little dolly here. As I was creating her, I made her shoes and socks and her legs and attached them to her body, which is inside the dress. And then I baked them so that I could handle them and not squish away my details while I added the dress. In fact, I added the dress and the arms and the collar and then baked that. And then I added the head and the cat, and then I baked that, and then I think I added the hair and the bows afterwards. So you can do it, and it doesn't hurt your clay to bake it as many times as you need to, as long as you don't go over the temperature that the manufacturer states, and also that your final bake is as long as the whole piece needs. So yes, if I look at the thickest part of this dolly, and I usually get out a ruler. Let's see, possibly the thickest part of her is her head. And she's a good inch thick. And yes, I baked her for 2 hours. And her hair is flexible. Unlike the last one I made, where over the years I would just touch it with a dusting brush and it would just snap off and be brittle, and I didn't realize what I had done wrong till later. So this little gal will last a lot longer than the previous version. So to sum up, bake for at least half an hour per 1/4 inch at the thickest point of your piece. Make sure you have an accurate temperature in your oven and pre-bake as many times as you need to with your project. And also I would say that baking inside that foil covered tent that I showed you earlier will help protect your clay from darkening over much in the oven. And some people have expressed concerns with baking polymer clay in a home oven. I don't know that it's that big a deal, but baking it in the foil tent alleviates any of those concerns. I hope that you found this helpful and that from now on you'll be creating stronger and more durable polymer clay pieces. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon page to help support these videos. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. I upload new tutorials every Tuesday and Friday. Happy creating. Bye-bye.